So thank you everybody for making it here for this meeting. The reason we're here is this is a public hearing, and we were approached by the Hemlock Co-op Elevator manager back last spring about a possible expansion, proposed expansion to the elevator. And then at our November meeting, Zach Boudry, the manager, came to us again and was looking to proceed with their expansion. And how the city council gets involved is the expansion that they're looking at, and they'll give that information, but they're looking at acquiring the MC Dipple Park, which would be just north to the current elevator operation. And the city has that, so they would have to acquire that from the city. So when Zach came to our November meeting and wanted to proceed, the council was concerned that we wanted to let the public come to a presentation, which Zach and the board will be giving us a presentation as to what they're proposing with their new expansion. And the, like I say, it involves the MC Dipple Park to the north. Zach will be giving the presentation for the board, and then once we're done with that, as far as the agenda, we'll allow a question and answer period. And so with that, again, thank you very much for coming, and thank you for your participation here tonight. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach Boudry, the Hemlock Co-op Elevator manager.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Those of you who don't know me, like Paul said, my name is Zach Boudry. I'm the manager at the elevator in town here. I've been here for a little over 5 years now, and we, as Paul said, we approached the council here a few months back about, looking at possible ideas about an expansion. And I guess what we've come up with, what we're here to talk about is going north from our current location. And, I'm going to ask everybody to hold off on questions till we're done with the presentation, and after that you'll be able to fire away. So, Kevin, go ahead. The proposal that we're looking at doing would be 3 grain bins. It'd be a dryer next to the elevator, wet and dry legs to access the dryer, and then 3 bins. 1 smaller bin is a wet bin, and then 2 wet holding bins. As far as the work goes, the general contractor would be out of East Grand Forks or Cavalier. We've had good luck with both in the past. The dryer contractor would be somebody out of Prairie Grain Systems in Thief River Falls. Electrician will be done as locally as we could do it in Kennedy, and the site prep would either be Waleski's or Anderson's. These are all estimates, but the total cost looks like it's going to be over $2 million. It's probably gone up since the time that we've gotten these estimates. The bins and conveyors and lights 1.5, dryer cost $375, site prep between 50 and 60, electrical 120 for a total cost of 2.1. General concerns. I've been hearing a lot about dust. This information, a lot of this is from the company that we'd be getting it from. This dryer is very clean. The perforations or the ventilations on the outside are designed to retain as much matter as possible. So in general, the environment that it would create is well within both the state and national pollution regulations. As far as looking at a grain dryer goes, you always see a lot coming off of it. Most of that is going to be steam. There will be some dust. I'm not going to tell you that there's not going to be any at all, because I don't want this to go through and then 2 or 3 years from now everybody's screaming about, oh, there's dust. What is generated should be light enough that it won't be an issue. The dryer will retain a lot of the dust, and it will be incinerated on its own And, you know, the majority of the dust should stay around the dryer, you know, within probably a 60-foot radius. You know, it will be weighted down by the steam and it should fall to the ground. The board and I wouldn't expect you guys to allow anything that would cause an issue within the city. I don't expect that the streets will be lined with, you know, grain dust or bees wings in the event that we're raising corn. I don't expect our plant to be any dirtier than it's ever been. And as far as dust and noise goes, if the city and the community would want us to sign an agreement stating that we will address major issues on an ongoing basis, we'd be happy to do that. All over the news is Mayville. And our situation is quite a bit different from Mayville. Mayville Elevator, first off, they didn't handle the situation properly. And it just turned into a he said, she said fight that got ugly, it got all over the news. That's not what we're looking to do. We realized that we need to maintain a clean working environment. Mayville did not have a dust suppression system prior to their conflict, which we do have. And Mayville, they did install that afterwards. And if you notice on these YouTube videos, the creator of the video thanks the board of directors and the manager for resolving their dust issue. Like I said, a situation like Mayville would not be acceptable to me or our board of directors. All grain entering our facility is dumped into a pit in our driveway. The driveway does have a dust suppression system. All grain entering our facility is transported in enclosed legs or conveyors. Everything on the new project would be the same way. I do have emissions data available. It's up front here if anybody needs it after the meeting. Fire is another concern that I've heard. You know, obviously, we did have a scare about a year ago here. We'll talk about what we do have to address fire issues right now. We have a state-of-the-art heat detection system. It was installed after our last scare. The system came at a cost of $80,000. Each bearing in our facility is hooked up to it. With the system, I can tell you the exact temperature of every bearing in our facility, and an alarm is triggered when a bearing reaches 40 degrees over outside temperature. The system has decreased our fire risk. Every bearing in the new construction will also be hooked up into this. You know, there is still a fire risk, but the risk is no greater than it's ever been. And as far as the new construction goes, our old facility is more likely to have a fire issue than the new stuff. Our facility also has standpipes located on all three sections, the main house, the annex, and the south house. The pipes are tested annually and are in proper working order. Regular routine maintenance eliminates most fire hazards, you know, cleaning up your dust and greasing your bearings, things like that. We have fire extinguishers located throughout our facility. A company out of Warroad inspects fire extinguishers annually, replaces what needs to be replaced, and adds extinguishers whenever necessary. The Zimmerman dryer, which is the kind of dryer that we're looking at putting in, it is pretty quiet. It's designed to run at low RPMs. Anything that makes noise is, you know, there's a layer of grain that's over a foot thick that travels through the columns of the dryer. Anything that is making noise at all is going to be encompassed by that, and it's going to act as a noise deadener. All fans on the dryer are low-speed centrifugal versus axial. That also makes a big difference on the noise. I have a study up here that's available for you guys to look at that was done in 1999 in Canada. It's from 63.7 meters or 209 feet from the dryer while it's running. The dryer only adds 2 decibels to the ambient outside noises. So 2 decibels higher than just what you hear anyway. There will be fans on each bin. There are noise suppression systems available for the fans. I expect that you guys would be more upset about the fans than the dryer, to be honest with you. The fans are a problem. They will be shut off at night in the event that they're even running. I would ask for exceptions. You know, if we need to keep grain in condition seasonally, they may need to be run 24 hours a day for short periods of time. Another issue that came up was road damage from more trucks. We're on one city street, that's 4th Street, otherwise we're on state highways 175, 75, and County Road 1. The amount of grain coming to town depends on several factors, and to be honest with you, I don't have much to do with any of it. The type of crop, you know, our market share has a lot to do with it, and the type of crop that our farmers are raising has more to do with it than anything. You know, if our market share stays the same and everybody raises beans, our handle's gonna be down about, you know, a little over 1 million bushels a year. If everybody handles wheat, it's gonna be up 1 million. And if everybody raised corn, it would be up 3 to 4 million. You know, I can't control what our farmers raise, and you know, the farmers don't make cropping decisions based on what we can do for them. They do it based on their own rotation and profitability. Residential property devaluation. You know, this is something that, you know, like I said, I want to do this project right. I want to work with the community the best that we can. We're adding on to a facility that's already here. You know, I don't think that the cosmetic look of the elevator sitting there is going to decrease anybody's property value. And as long as any issues are managed properly and we don't have any real issues with our neighbors, you know, there's no reason that people should be losing money on their homes due to this. Moving to the industrial park is something that's also been brought up. You know, we've been in our current location since long before the industrial park was established. There are height restrictions in place due to the airport being near the industrial park. Additional upfront costs and hidden costs don't make a move very feasible. As far as rail access goes, you know, it would be a waste of money for us to put another rail spur in. We already have one. If we were to move off-site, it would need to be in a location that would allow enough growth to put a shuttle loader in, and the industrial park would not allow that. When I say a shuttle loader, it would be so we could increase the amount of rail cars that we load at one time, that we'd get a better rail rate and typically higher prices to the farmer. At this point, one location just makes everybody's lives easier. Our location makes expansion hard. South end, there's a road in the way and property currently owned and used by Johnson Oil. We own off-site, there'd be lots of hidden costs, new scale, new legs, new office building, new pit, new office equipment, additional transportation costs. If I had to ballpark, well, I don't have to ballpark. I have numbers on a similar facility off-site, and the facility alone is $1 million more due to all the extra things that we already have that we'd have to put up again. At this point, it's just not very financially feasible. If we had an off-site facility, there'd be additional transportation costs that would have to be passed on to the farmer. We would then, you know, have to reduce the price that we offer at the business, and it would make us less competitive and hurt our market share. Constantly shuffling grain back and forth would not be efficient, and beyond the additional upfront costs of moving off-site, many more costs that would hurt our business and reduce our price paid for grain. This project would give us the ability to handle corn, and you know, it is my belief that corn will be a player in Kittson County, whether anybody's geared up for it or not. If the grain markets go up, it has been proven that our climate can handle EBD corn and our ground will produce it. You know, right now we need a dryer for wheat, and we would have used it for beans the last couple of years as well. Our current facility is in great shape, but it's too small to handle what our current customer base produces. And if we want to expand our customer base to create relationships with farmers throughout the county, you know, we can't do that because we need to service our regular customers at this point. As far as, you know, what the elevator does for our community, we do employ 4 people with good jobs. We participate in community and county functions, the fair, citywide benefits. We spend a lot of money locally, our employees spend money locally, and we provide a needed service to Kittson County farmers. From 2011 until right now, local donations and expenditures over and above utilities, powers, and lights is over $175,000. Anything that we can do locally, we do locally. Our checking account is at United Valley, and our long-term debt is financed at American Federal. We paid over $35,000 in interest since 2011. As far as power, $56,000, real estate taxes, $35,000. This is a big one. Freight paid to local truckers, just about $790,000 over the last 3 years. We've shipped out just about 5 million bushels from 2011 till right now. When we truck the grain versus using the railroad, there's a better chance that the money will stay in the community. Local haulers have used probably more than 60,000 gallons of fuel since 2011, and the majority of that fuel is being purchased locally. What we do for our farmers, as a co-op, our profits get passed back onto the farmers. Since 2011, we've paid out just about $1.2 million in cash dividends that, can be spent locally. 1.6 million is called a revolving fund. That's dividends that are owed to the farmers, and, that money is going to be paid back to them sometime shortly. We're a big contributor to the community. Hallock, as everybody knows, is an ag-based community. Hallock Co-op Elevator plans to continue to put money into the city of Hallock and back into our farmers' pockets, and we plan on continuing to provide at least 4 good jobs. This project would help us maintain and expand our customer base, generate revenue through drying, allow us to handle a high-volume crop like corn, and ideally, we would add at least 1 more job, and it will help us to remain a viable business for many years to come. Additional thoughts, as I said before, we're having this meeting because the board and I want this to work for everybody. We don't want to get into any kind of, arguments with the community at all. It's not our intention to do this without community support, and I ask the citizens of Hallock to think about this and what the elevator can bring to the community and weigh the positives and the negatives. The dryer that we put up would be natural gas fired. We would be buying the natural gas from the city. Depending on our usage, overall natural gas rates may decrease for the community, and overall natural gas usage would increase, which would increase revenue for the city to take on other projects, and this project would increase the tax base on our property. Before we get into discussion, I know nothing was brought up about the park in this presentation. It has been said to the council and anybody else that would like to know, we will do all that we can over and above to provide a new park, at no cost to you guys. So if you want to hammer me with some questions, go ahead.
I'll do here. If whoever has questions, if you could come to the front, and the reason we're recording it, so the sound, I'll come on the other side and reach the microphone as far as we can, and then probably bring it back to Zach or whoever from the elevator board that would want to address the question. So I'll come around. And then what I would like you to do is if you would just state your name and maybe just if your residence is Hallock, whether you're in farming or wherever, if you're from Humboldt or Kennedy or, but just say Hallock, Minnesota or wherever it would be from. So try to limit it with your question, and then we'll have a response to the question or concern. And then try to get through as many people as we can so everybody has an opportunity to speak. Probably if you just raise your hand, and then I'll just have a person come up and then they'll finish and we'll just proceed with raising your hand. So, George?
What's plan B?
We don't really know what plan B is.
Last council meeting, you were going to explain plan B.
There was a plan B, but it's not something that I really need that I don't think the person that I've talked to about the property would like me to talk about right now. I did make it clear to Ryan that we, as a board and myself, we are open to suggestions, from them, as far as what the city could possibly do for us to maybe, if it's not possible to have this year, what else, where could we go, and how could we soften the blow as far as additional costs?
Okay, raise your hand. Maybe this will stretch to the front here.
Okay, I'm Kate Rosengren. I live in Hallock. I moved here exactly 50 years ago, August 30th. In that time, I have seen the town lose a lot of population. Now, whatever else we're talking here, we're talking ugly. Ugly does not sell real estate in this town. it's a problem. I try to bring people in from the east when I have guests for the first time, because they say, oh, this is really a nice town. South and north, not so pretty. I'm concerned about that, and at a time when other cities are busting their behinds to have green spaces, we're talking about eliminating one that is good where it is. That troubles me.
In the 5 years that I've been here, I've been at the elevator just about every day. And I'll be completely honest, I've seen one person spending time in that park. I'm not saying that it's not good to be there. I'm saying that we are more than willing and more than happy to put another park in a visible location for everybody to see.
Next.
I'm Gail Morton, manager of the Enterprise. I just have a few questions for the city council. What is the city's ordinance on height of the buildings? What is the height on zoning issues? At one council meeting, you said it was 100 feet, and I think I reported on that. And at the last council meeting last night, they said the bin was, they showed a picture of the bin, they said it was 110 feet high, is that correct?
The top of the dryer would be 100.
Yeah, so what is the city ordinance for zoning?
I can answer that. It's within 6,000 feet of the end of the runway, so that's pretty close to the current elevator. It's 100 feet without a variance by the Airport Zoning Commission.
So 3 bins are going to be 110 feet high each?
No, just the dryer. The bins are probably closer to 80 something.
Okay, I thought they were showing the picture of the bin at the city council meeting the other night. That round bin we were looking at.
That's the dryer that we were looking at, yep.
Okay, so that is within ordinance within the city zoning. Okay. Another thing in the city zoning, like you said, I had 100 pages and I just skimmed through it. On section 4.3, number H, they say you have to have a special use permit for fertilizer or gas, any building that's going to have gas. Well, we know there must be going to be some kind of gas combustion from drying of grain. Is that not correct? I mean, so would they have to have a special use permit?
Well, as far
It's
as,
in the city ordinance.
right, that would have to be researched further as far as,
Okay.
they, right this time that they're proposing this expansion, and then we would,
That's a question I have.
well, maybe, mention that. And I was gonna mention that afterwards. But basically, from this hearing is, it'll be up to the city council to decide if we're gonna transfer the lease to, and there's railroads involved and whatever, so as each step would go, we would have to, make sure everything met law and ordinance. And
What to tell people about what this lease is on the dollar lease from 1929 with the railroad on this part? Because a lot of people maybe don't know that.
Well,
Just tell me, just in simple terms, what it's about.
right, the lease agreement, which we discussed at the last meeting on Monday night, is with the railroad, and the city has had the lease since the 1920s, and we still have it, of course. So my understanding that we would have to transfer through the railroad that lease for this facility at that location.
It's a $1 lease.
Yeah, I don't, was it $1?
Yeah, we paid $1 once.
You paid $1 for that lease, and you have to give written notice to the railroad within 30 days. And then you said at the council meeting the other night that if the city relinquishes that lease, that the railroad would most likely give the elevator the lease.
Yeah, that would have to be,
I mean, there are no railroad people here.
that's an assumption, so.
It's an assumption,
Right,
yeah, but-
yeah, that's our understanding from what Ryan had talked to,
Why wouldn't the elevator
the lease.
take that lease for Procter, so.
Another question I just have is on air quality violations. Do you have to meet EPA and MPCA specs on the emissions of the,
We were actually just talking about that before we started. We are going to verify that the data that we have would be compliant with EPA standards.
So that would be a concern of mine.
It would be a concern of ours too. We would not want to put something up that would damage the quality of the air in the community.
Well, that's one of my concerns is safety issue, you know, a lot of people with health issues. So there has to be some EPA and PCA emission quality
Yeah,
control.
and like I said, in the event that this went through, we would make sure that we were compliant with everything that we needed to be compliant with.
There was a company in Jasper, Minnesota that was fined $45,000 in the past years, and they had to do corrective measures because of emission quality control, I mean, from a drainage system. So, I mean, there's many in it, so. I'm just concerned with the dust, these wings fans running. I live over there. I've talked to, there was somebody that came in my office and said that there's a farmer in the area that I found out that they've been drying grain or corn and their yard was just covered with bees wings. And you know, the Mayville video shows, you know, we don't need more of that on our main street. You know, it'll get into our businesses and, I mean, when you walk through the door, I'm all for expansion, don't get me wrong, but I just don't feel this facility needs to be built in downtown. But I can understand the cost situation also. Another issue I had was, you know, the fans, the constant noise. I know, my research that I know, you know, what that's going to entail. Railroads sit out here, engines sit out here and run all night long, you know. We can't sleep. I want to run out there and say, shut that damn thing off. But I don't, you know. I'm also concerned with fires. We had a fire November 21st. I brought that paper. I talked to a couple of business people and they said that one of the firemen that told one of the businesses get ready to evacuate because if the elevator would have blown, thank God, all of our businesses in a 2-3 block radius, the windows would have all busted all out. I mean, it's just a safety concern. And I'm sure the fire department is concerned with that also, you know, so. But fires happen, but adding and expanding just creates a more combustible situation, I feel. You got grain dust, you got the oxygen, you got the ignition source, and you got the confinement for fire. But you have that now anyway, you know. But are the farmers, they are all the owner cooperative, is that correct? Just another comment that I'd like to make. The situation to me is the building, the expansion is important for Helen. I'm for all expansion of any businesses. I mean, I own a business, it's important. But the situation to me is tall trouble for Main Street of Hallock. I mean, I just think it's tall trouble. For health reasons, emergency personnel. You know, we have any firemen here? Yeah.
I think Jim, our chief, is here too, and
Is
Troy's
he?
here,
I mean,
and
I'd like to hear from some of the firemen how they feel about this. You know, we have the North Star facility. Is there a plan in place for the fire department if a fire? I mean, I'm sorry.
yeah, rather than having me talk about it, Jim, I think maybe.
We don't want to
coming
know,
from-
but I mean, I'm just concerned about it with our
Well,
emergency
we do wanna
personnel.
know.
You
If
know.
you're asking the question, Gail, so there's the answer. So let Jim talk about it.
Jim Slosky, our chief from our fire department.
As chief, you know, we looked into this grain dryer situation because there's a few of them in town. The way they've designed them, you can get into the boxes to extinguish fire. If this new system starts fire, you open the bottom, let the grain run off the bottom, and as you come out, you put it out. Which is, you know, being able to get in there and put it out is the biggest concern. And getting the grain away and keeping it put out as it's coming out. It's a whole lot easier than trying to put the elevator in.
It's not confined space entry.
It's all.
Okay,
It's
that's
a
what
lot,
I'm saying.
And it's
a
all
lot.
I
steel.
heard about confined space entry.
And that's what typically the elevator is, but the one positive the Halifax elevator is, a lot of elevators around and the ones that have burned down that you've seen do not have sprinkler systems. We have what we call a dry system in the elevator. There's no water. Fire department hooks up to it, puts water into it, and when the sprinkler head has been activated, it sprinkles. So the fire we had was up in the cupola, which is above everything.
And from the wood.
And that's confined, there's where more confined space issues are.
Yeah.
This dryer, sorry Jim, but this dryer you can access from 360 degrees.
And steel. It's not all wood. So fire concern for me isn't as high as it would be in a.
Well, I'd just like to,
We did purchase the ladder truck that Will's, last time it took an hour and a half to get from East Grand. Now we have our own that we just recently purchased, so that's not a good note as far as the
Well,
fire.
like I said, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm all for expansion. I'm worried about the dust. I'm worried about the fans, fires, our Main Street, stuff laying all over. But I'm all for expansion, you know, I mean, and you made a comment one time at one of the city council meetings that, that's wrong, that $1 million a year is driving down the road. Don't you still have to haul to market? I mean, how did you calculate that, or how did you come up with $1 million then? Money,
That was
just
just a
that.
number that I threw out, but
Okay,
when
you
the
must
grain-
have,
when the grain comes into the elevator in Hallock, I mean, I control when I sell that.
okay.
You know, so I mean, as far as revenue goes, it could be 100,000, it could be 5 million.
Okay. So you see, I mean, there's a lot of farmers in our area that don't have their own, don't put up their own grain drying systems, corn drying systems. Do you see is this a real need? Do you see this, I mean,
Absolutely. I mean, it makes a lot more sense for us to have one up there than it does for the farmer to have one.
well, like I said, I'm all for expansion. The city council is gonna have to do some, serious thinking about this, because if it is approved, if the city relinquishes at least of Dimple Park, and it is approved, and we have a matter what that went on in Mayville for a year, I will be the first one at the city council meeting complaining, and I'll go on record every meeting. I mean, I'm all for it. I mean, it's important to our community to have expansion, but you and the city council have to decide. It's not a matter of going after gas, but you have to decide the good of the people. That's why we elect you. So.
Thank you. So what Gail said about city council, again, I was going to touch on that in the closing, but it is up to the council to decide. This hearing is for us to gather information from the public, but more get it from the elevator. Zach has come to our meetings with some information and drawings, and like I say, they met with us the 1st of November, and that's where this public hearing got set from. So as a council, we're getting information that we wanted from the elevator too. So it's for everybody. But back to the council is we have to take it from here, and we will be setting a time subsequent to this date. It hasn't been set yet, but it'll be a decision of the council to agree to transfer the lease. But like I say, this hearing was more for for anything concerning the expansion, but to gather more information regarding the elevator project. So
You can't transfer that lease, can you, Brian?
we
You
would,
can't, you have to relinquish that lease.
Yeah, technically, we'd give up the
You have
lease.
to apply for that lease from the railroad, is that correct?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, and so, okay, what happens if the railroad says, no, we're not gonna give you that lease, what's plan B?
That'd be counterproductive for them.
I have visited with the railroad.
You have?
Yes.
Okay.
And as far as obtaining the lease goes, you know, if we go through the proper channels, that's
Yeah.
not a problem at all.
Well, and I'm gonna go on record also, I am interested in the MPCA and the EPA emission quality control that the elevators can have. Because I researched a lot of different elevators that was a big issue, even on a government website. I mean, I have all the documentation in my office too, that was a big issue, so it's a health and safety thing, you know. We want you to make money, we want We want the farmers to make money because we are ag, but we have to live here and all our businesses have to make money, but we need to be healthy. And we need our property values to stay up because I do know my property value will go down. I've already checked that out.
Okay, thank you.
10 years ago, I made the mistake of saying in West Glacier during the fires, I got bacterial pneumonia from the particulates in the smoke, which are far finer than the particulates that this particular enterprise will emit. I coughed blood from December 22nd to May 3rd. And that was from particulates. So it is a health concern. 60 feet is a big radius, and we have businesses across the street from this who are less than 60 feet away. That's a concern. I don't know if you want to be working in a building where that could be a problem. Also, it left me with this voice, which I've never gotten to clear up. So it is a concern.
Sure.
The particular matter that, from grain dust is quite a bit coarser than particular matter from things of that nature. Particular matter from grain typically sticks in your nose and throat, whereas fine particulars can get into your lungs and cause some real problems. As far as, dust and what kind of radius we can look at, 60 is the conclusion that I've come with from the people, the vendors that would be selling us the dryer. There is not a business or home within a 60-foot radius of where this dryer would sit.
You talked about the state-of-the-art company that you're proposing to use. Do you happen to know the company that put up the one in Drayton or the one that put up in Stephen? Or is it the same company?
The one in Stephen was a company out of Halstead, I think, Brassett Construction. We would not be using them. I don't know who put the one up in Drayton.
Okay. I noticed the amount of dust that comes off of those, what's laying on Highway 75 going through Stephen, what's already laying on the roof of that big building that they put up next to the one in Drayton. And when you talked about 60 feet from, that's without any kind of wind, and we know what kind of wind pops up around here. So confining that to a 60-foot radius around that dryer probably isn't even close to where that dust is going to end up landing. I personally am also all for the expansion, and yes, we need that, and you need that. I just don't feel that right downtown is probably the place for it. I think that it is going to hinder any kind of business expansion, or perhaps even somebody taking over a business downtown after somebody retires or wants to move on. So that's just my feeling as a citizen of Hallock. Sorry if Diane Ingram, I'm from Hallock.
Bob, you want to come up here? Rocky, I'll come to you next.
Hi, I'm Bob Joshik. I live just west of the elevator right now. I just seeking I hear a lot of questions that people ask, and I don't know that any of those questions have been asked yet, so I'm trying to stay neutral with this, but just seeking some information. First off, you did say the 60-foot radius, and that seems reasonable as far as that stuff stays put, but how often, how does that get cleaned up? And how do you prevent it in a 40-mile-an-hour northwest wind from covering Austin's funeral? That would be a question that I would have. You did say also that there are future issues would be addressed, and I don't know what kind of avenues that those would end up following. Would those go through the elevator board, or would those go through the city council?
In all likelihood, there are things that have to be brought to either one of us.
Yeah, it's just, it'll be a question would think would perhaps come up. I know that that's something that people have talked about. You said that this was a Zimmerman dryer, and is this Zimmerman dryer, is this the same as like Lindegaard's have out here? Is that the same type of deal, or are
It's a
they
different
different?
brand, but the same type.
Okay, so very similar in construction and whatever else, okay? I realize Drayton is your competition. Drayton, as Diane just said, there's a lot of dust and there have been issues in Drayton. Have you visited with folks in Drayton who have dealt with the problems regarding the dust or any of that kind of stuff? Okay, because I think that may, I think that would maybe ease some people's concerns a little bit if you had some of that information. Another question that I've heard quite frequently from people is not necessarily the amount of traffic from trucks or whatever, but it seems physically it would be difficult to fit all that in that little space. And that's just something that I just can't get my head wrapped around. It just seems like it's too tight a space at that point.
The driveway that we would be left with is no smaller than our present driveway.
Okay, so that doesn't really affect anything on that way.
It's not a real concern.
Okay, because that just, like I say, I can't get my head wrapped around it. I don't know what it's gonna look like. Kind of related to that, have you done any sort of a drawing or any sort of a sketch to see what that layout or what that plan would look like?
I do not have it with, I have showed it to the city council.
Okay, that's something that I think people would that would probably benefit people as they go through this process, because they like to know what things are gonna look like. Another question, I guess, that I just thought of is, does this box you in for any further expansion that you would have? I mean, obviously the elevator's growing, things are changing, but does this kind of pin you down and that's as much space as you're gonna ever be able to have?
That has been a concern.
Okay, and then I guess my last question that I have here is if the city says no, then what?
Well, like I said before, I would like to work with the city on an alternative. I don't have a clear-cut plan B right now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Rob?
I guess I'm not quite sure of the rumors, like, are there gonna be bids just on the Dipple Park side or on both sides, like by McGee's building, or just straight across? from
Just
me?
connected to the elevator at this point.
I didn't know if there's gonna be an overhead conveyor over the street, because that's what I had heard. And I just wanted to know what was true or not. And because, when I look out my window, there's a traffic issue, and if it wasn't on both sides, and there's trucks besides, it would be really, you'd almost have to put up a traffic light there, an overhead light. But if it's just on one side, that's not gonna be as bad as I thought. So that's good news, I guess. Because it is a busy intersection there. Then there's people like myself that live uptown, on my side of the street and on the opposite side of the street. I was pleased to hear you say that the fan noise would be as minimal as possible, especially at night, because we got to sleep at night. So those were my main concerns, was that fan noise and that intersection congestion with the senior center and because the assumption is there will be more truck traffic, but maybe I'm wrong. But we don't want semis parked in front of our businesses waiting to get into the elevator. And I think you all understand that. So, kind of like the idea that part, that lot possibly is left open, and the trucks can go in and out from there to alleviate traffic on the highway, the parking on the highway.
Thanks, Rob.
Just to touch on what Rob said, where we did tear down the old GTA elevator, that lot would stay open. We would, leave it as is as gravel, and that would be for truck traffic in and, keep them off the street.
Okay, floor's open. Keith?
I don't need to go. Keith Clake said, where would you put Dipple Park?
That's up to you guys.
I think people would like to know that.
If you wanna put it on the corner where that old white Johnson building is, right next to is that the Schnarr building? That would be a candidate.
I'd like to see them.
You have any after that?
Oh, that's just, I've had some people ask me that, so I thought I'd ask a question.
My name is Jan Klein, and I'm probably the one up in rural Dipple Park that Zach has seen, because I certainly don't have a lineup of help. Rural Dipple Park needs work desperately. The fence has been taken down because that was rotted. It's low. I've had Dan fill it. We've had 3 sets of evergreen trees there, and they all die because it's too low. The water stands there. It's a garbage hole. Everybody that drives by on the street throws garbage in there. And I go out at least once a week and pick garbage. The things that are there were given in memory, and I think they could be moved. I would much rather have, if this happens with the elevator, if Johnson's would consent, and at one time, I know they talked about tearing down their building when we had a celebration. I think now we're Ed Chenard's building, and that would be a beautiful spot for Merle Dipple Park. We have a picnic table that sits in Merle Dipple Park, and nobody ever sits there. It's full of weeds, and it's not taken care of. I plant flowers there because I just can't stand to think that Halleck's gonna have their streets with nothing on them. And that's hardly any cost to the taxpayers other than the people coming forward and giving money. The city gives me $2,000. Right now, Roso's budget for flowers is $32,000. My help that I have to help water, and I know I shouldn't probably bring all this up now, but it has to do with Dipple Park. I personally feel that if we could move it over to that corner, it would be a much better spot, and it would be much more attractive. I think Merle Dipple Park is just going to go down, 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 and that's my personal feeling, whether this expansion takes place or not.
Wouldn't that fill up with the chaff too, the Dipple Park, you moved it on the corner? I mean, that chaff is going to blow all over. I talked to a foreman that works for Tim Milwaukee, and they've got a 15 or 20 acre bin site with a big gyre. And he told me that 20 acres, 15 acres is full of that dust. He said, if you guys want something on your main street that looks like this, he said, there's no way. And I just soon have the council get this Plan B and do something with that instead of putting it on the main street. We don't need it there.
I don't know who the foreman is, you talk to George, but we dry all our corn at our place too, and we have bees wings in our yard because we're dumping into open bins and we're dumping from trucks into open augers. If you listen to the presentation, their system is going to be completely enclosed. They have a dust collection. There will be virtually no bees wings. We get dust from our dryer, but it's nothing compared to the bees wings, which I'm sure is what this gentleman is talking about. I know Tim's site up there, I've been up there. They're getting bees wings because they don't have an enclosed system.
Want to come up here, please?
I'm Joel Kramer. I live across to the west of the elevator, and I work at CHS in Grady. I'd like to know if any of you on the board or the council have visited this Zimmerman dryer that you're going to put up. Has anybody looked at it?
No, just read the.
We have a Zimmerman dryer in Grady. The new dryer we put up is a different kind, and it's to cure this problem with bees wings. Now, if you want to see the Zimmerman, just wait until it goes empty, and you have to empty it several times as you're drying to clean the clones. When you fill that dryer, you're, 80 feet in the air. That dust disperses a long ways, more than 60 feet. And as far as health issues, somebody addressed, yes, we're getting phone calls all the time. There isn't a day that we go by that we wish we would have built out of town. And as far as expansion, and as far as the cleanliness. And that's all I got to say, because I am in the competition, so I can understand why you need to build, but I think you need to feel it out more, because I think you're going to be sorry in the long run. I think you'd rather be where you have more room.
Thanks, Joel. Helen, you want to come up here, please?
My name is Ellen Johnson, and I think you know that. My thoughts are a little more petty and selfish, I think, than a lot of these we've heard tonight. I'm looking at the view part, what we look at. 12 years ago, we built a senior center on the west side. We looked at a lot of different areas to build, and it was by far the best area to build because we could look out, see the town, we could see the flag up there. And I know it's pretty penny right now when you come to a $2 million project. I agree with you 100% that you need it. But I just want to mention that on behalf of the senior center. We got a lot of seniors here that could come over there and join us. I mean, a lot of young people that will be seniors someday, and we'd like to invite you to come and join us. So now I got my commercial in. Thank you.
Saw somebody else's hand up. At least I thought I did.
You know, I'm the one that's probably closest to the elevator than everybody in my business. And there's a couple of things, fire, in the dryer not ideal. I think most elevators that burn down are caused by explosions from the dust. We can't control. The corn is 7 times more combustible than wheat. That's a proven fact. A bee's wing can go through a hole the size of a toothpick, roughly a 3/32 hole, over dry and rain. So we're going to have bees wings, we're going to have dust. That's pretty much a fact. And is there, I don't think anybody in this room doesn't want to see this happen. Everybody wants to see this go. And I would implore the city to work with them, to make it work, but, probably what's best for the community. And is it there? Probably not. There's got to be a better location. I don't think there's a farmer in the state or the tri-state area that would put a grain dryer of this size or any size within 300 feet of their house. And that's what we're kind of looking at. And that's the negative side, just probably not the best location.
Thanks, Jim. Somebody else have their hand up? Now's the time to speak.
as probably the second closest business to the expansion, absolutely feel the same way as Tim. Totally 100% for the expansion, just not that location. I want to see you guys succeed, because if you guys succeed, we all succeed. My major concerns, of course, noise and dust, which you somewhat addressed. I wasn't real clear. I know you said 2 decibels over what we currently hear. I visited with a couple of managers up in North Dakota of these facilities, and they've got farmers, they're out in the country, they're not in town. There's a farmer a quarter mile away that calls them regularly. Can you shut those fans off so I can sleep? I'm not sure if it's the same system. I know it's just a concern of mine. You said you'd possibly be able to shut them down at night. That doesn't do downtown any good. We're here every day. This is our home. We're here 8 hours a day. I'm at work more than I'm at home. So to me, this is my home that I'm speaking about and wanting to protect. I also brought some pictures of the Shapansky dryer system down there, and I know it's a totally different system, but it's a mess. Those bee swings are everywhere. They happen to be moving corn that day, which obviously adds to it, contributes to it, but all but 50 to 60 yards away, there's bee swings, there's deer tracks, and the deer tracks are full of bee swings. I don't want my business turning orange. Someday I'd like to retire. I don't know if I'll be able to sell my business or not, but I know I wouldn't if it was orange on the outside. You know, I've got a real concern about the dust and the noise. There's already noise at the elevator. I used to be able to keep my door open periodically with a screen door, and I finally quit doing that because if I'm up front and answer my phone and the fans are running, I'm assuming it's fans in the current dryer, it's a noise concern, and if we add to that, it's even going to be worse. Again, I totally 100% for it, just not at that location. One thing that really would have impressed me is actually seeing that map. To me, I guess I missed the exact slide, how big these bins are going to be, 147,000 bushel?
150,000.
150,000 bushel?
60-foot diameter, 60 feet to the east.
Okay. You know, to me that's important for these people to visualize what that's going to look like. I'm not a farmer. I grew up on a farm, but I'm not a farmer. So a $100,000 bushel bin versus a $150,000 bushel bin, I don't know. But I think that's something that needs to be addressed too. Is let's get a drawing out there. Let's see what this is going to look like. As far as to the street, how close are those bins to the street?
They'll be 35 feet.
Which is about what compared to the existing elevator? The driveway? Or the...
Well, the current driveway, if you get to the end of Dipple Park, it's probably, I don't even know, probably 60 feet.
Okay. Is the... So like the middle section of the elevator is about how far back from the street? That's what you're saying, it's like 70 feet?
You're talking about?
I'm drawing a blank on the word, between the two elevators is the annex. How far is that?
From the street?
From the street.
When you're looking at it, how far is it from the street?
Yeah.
I don't know, probably 60 feet.
Okay, so it's going to be considerably closer to the street than what your existing elevator is. Okay. See, that's where I'd like to see a picture. I'm a visual person. I'm envisioning probably the worst, and that's not a good thing. I think that's about it.
Anybody else?
Joe Levette, Colic, Minnesota. I was on the city council for a number of years, mayor for a number of years. Real tough problems for him. I also, as most of you know, I'm county commissioner in Kitson County right now. Outside of the canola plant, I don't know when we've had somebody come forward to us wanting to add $2 million to our tax base. That's pretty impressive. That doesn't mean just because we're adding money to the tax base, things should be done. I'm also a person that likes to cut to the chase, and I hear about the lease, and neither Ryan or one of the council members can answer this question for me. You have a lease with the railroad, been there since 1929, so was there when I was on the council, and mayor didn't know it really existed. I just knew that we had control of that piece of property. What is the out of that lease for the railroad, and what is the out of that lease for the city?
It's 30 days notice by either the railroad or the city.
Okay. So as a city council, then, if the railroad comes to you and says, we want out of the lease, now all of a sudden you don't have that lease, correct?
Yes, because
And
they
I
own the
would-
property.
Pardon?
I assume so because they own the property.
Right, okay. Yeah, that's the lease agreement. So then if that were to happen, what is the city council's control of your zoning?
We control the building permits that we issue, so.
Do you have a building code in the city, or are they zoning permits? Are they called?
Zoning permit.
They're zoning permits. So zoning permits, if it's zoned for commercial,
Yes.
Yeah.
so what control can the city do? They're a commercial business. What control can the city have over them if they meet the requirements of commercial business?
Well, really, we don't have control. We basically, we're just a mediator between the railroad and the elevator because we have existing assets there, whatever. So all we have to do is vacate the premises and they can take it straight away.
But you may not have a choice in vacating it yourselves.
Right.
Okay.
The only thing that might be an issue is the 100-foot height restriction from the airport, like we mentioned earlier. But that's if it's within 6,000 feet of the runway, which it's close. So.
And they'd have to get a variance.
Because most of the talk has been, what if the building goes up, how much does, how much this, how much that? But we haven't established whether that building is even going to be going up. You know, and that isn't established yet, but that's the legality of it then.
Right.
So there's-
We have the control to either grant them the right to have a parking lot. And that's what we're talking about here right now.
Parking lot?
Park, the Dibble
Park.
Park.
Well, you don't if the railroad takes back their lease.
Right, but we can give that lease away. We can give that.
Well,
lease
sure you
back
can,
to the
but in
railroad.
30 days they can take it. Because if they want it back, they can end the lease agreement in 30 days. They can give you notice that they're going to end the lease.
Not according to what I read on the lease, Joe.
Right?
I think technically that's correct. I mean, it's 30 days cancelable by either party, really.
Okay. So you've got to, have you had any negotiations with the railroad?
We have not.
Well, as far as the negotiations or whatever, I guess, being this is begun and before anything were to change, but Ryan spoke to an agent with Burlington Northern the other day about that lease agreement.
Correct.
And that's basically what it was, is that 30-day notice by either party. After, to answer your question directly, the railroad could terminate in 30 days.
So a business that has quite a financial gain by taking the lease back really has final control of it. The city really doesn't have any control.
Other than the blessing that we give to it. No. If we give it.
It's a railroad, or us.
And then 35 feet on the roads, in the paper, whether it was, Carol's here, but whether it was correct or not, Ryan had said that you could build the elevator right up to the road. What does that mean?
I asked that question to the city council that
Okay.
night, how close to the road can they build? And you said there's no,
Right, there's no setback on
setback.
the highway.
Well, that, being a city, county commissioner, that's a real problem for us. Because County Road 1, there's a snow problem there. You know, the railroad comes in with their front end loaders and moves all that snow off the Dipple Park. If grain elevators or dryers, whatever, are put up there right up to the road, the county would have an issue with snow removal along there. That's just something to think about in the future, if in fact it ever gets put there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Joe. See if I can reach it to you there, Dorothy.
Dorothy Bird from Hella. Ever since the canola plant opened, there's been a great increase in the truck traffic past my house, and I assume there's going to be an even more increase in traffic past my house.
The difference, in this versus the canola plant is these trucks would be stopping in town versus driving straight through. These trucks wouldn't be driving 40 miles an hour through town. They would be slowing way down. And, like I said, the amount of trucks that come to our facility, I don't really necessarily control that. It's based on the size of the crop and what crops are being raised.
Anyone else? Okay.
Short-term memory, Fred. One question. A couple times, both on the dust and on the noise, you said if that becomes an issue, we will deal with that. What's your plan on dealing with it? I mean, once it's built, you're certainly not going to tear it down and move it back if there's complaints. What steps would you take to satisfy the complaints once it's built and operating? And I mean, if it's dustier than you imagined, obviously the company that's selling the dryer is going to sell you on it. It's not going to have dust for 60 feet, but you get it up and doggone it, there's dust 300 feet. You get complaints. How are you going to handle that? What is our, and I guess I should address more of the council on that. How will you handle that? Because now it's a little late for all those decisions. Something we need to think about.
Thanks, Laura. Anyone else?
What about cutting off the sunshine? I guess that's my concern.
Okay, mentions about the view, or like Elda mentioned, the view or the sun. Yeah,
You're blocking the
the
sun.
sky.
Well, why can't the council now work with them with Plan B? It's gotta be a Plan B somewhere along the way.
We've been working with the elevator board. We met with them, and I know Zach's been working with Ryan and working together to.
Wouldn't that be better for all the people? There's 70% of the people in town don't want it.
Well, that's why we're here tonight, and hopefully, in discussions.
Work on this Plan B, whether it's in the industrial park or up by the airport or whatever. There's room out there even. But the CEO, I mean, and they're close to the railroad, so as far as being a spur or whatever. I mean, there's all kinds of places going.
May I have the floor?
Sure.
At the last city council meeting on Alex Hutchinson, at the last city council meeting I was at, we talked about putting up the dryer in Dipple Park. The reason why we wanted to put it up in Dipple Park was there's a 4-inch gas main that comes right off the pipe that's already there. It's a main, basically infrastructure. We don't need to do anything as far as the city. Everything goes straight in there. I think Troy can maybe elaborate more about it, but putting that in there, basically I've been on the council for 3 years, and the only fund that makes any money in this city is the gas fund. Putting natural gas in the city of Hallock is probably the best thing that they've ever did. And for generating natural gas and having a commercial entity that wants to use that gas on a, I don't know, August, November, and then the rest of the time it'll probably be shut off. They're going to need it for a peak period, and then after that, I mean, granted, there's a lot that needs to be talked about, but
You already got gas out in the industrial park. got gas out at the airport. I mean, how much, it didn't take nothing to hook up gas. You run gas to the.
Can you elaborate a little bit on the infrastructure, Troy, or?
Thing is, the gas line going on at the airport is not sufficient.
Huh?
Out at the airport, the gas line is not sufficient. We'd have to expand it. It's not big enough to handle for what they're talking about. Not saying you can't keep it in.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, is
You run
what's there right
plastic,
now,
all
what
it is
Alex is
plastic
saying.
pipe.
I'm sorry?
All it is plastic pipe nowadays.
Yeah, it is, but it's just an expense, that's all they're talking about. And I'm just saying, it's insufficient what's there now. He's saying that there's something there. He says, under normal circumstances, what happens is the city hooks up to whatever entity wants to come in. And they generate the revenue off that, pay back what they put in. So, like Alex was saying.
City's helping. City's actually helping out there.
Yeah, as long as we just do it, yes. Yes, they'll make money off it. Hopefully that's what's gonna happen, they make money, that's why anybody's in business. But, like I said, that's what Alex was talking about, this is close for them. That's the only disappointment, I think.
And as far as the 4-inch main, it just so happens to be in that location. So as far as, we have gas, like you say, we've got gas, but those areas, of course, not that we haven't talked about them or that we won't talk about them, but at this time, this is the presentation for that location, and to go from this point, that's the reason of the public input, I believe, as far as the elevator is concerned, that to get the input from the public and any interested party regarding that. But definitely, I mean, the city's got gas lines within the city limits. So, Roger?
Well, I'm a former patron of Halleck Club Elevator. Zach, what is the value of the elevator as it sits, just roughly?
Just of the property?
Yeah.
About 200,000.
And the buildings and the plant?
Well, the book value is 300,000, you just put $1 million into it, you know, you could call it 1.1.
Yeah, well.
We're insured for 8.6 million, if that helps, as far as replacement costs goes.
As a farmer, it'd be nice if you could build out of town. But is there anybody here willing to spend $2 or $3 million to buy that elevator and say we will not compete with the elevator? That's the whole problem. They don't have many choices to stay financially competitive. If you move out of town, I think your margin for grain would be a lot higher, so I could no longer afford to haul to you. Would that be correct?
You mean our prices would be lower?
Your prices would be lower. I'd have to haul someplace else. So.
Well, they're not gonna move the big elevators.
No, but to have a grind system, to be efficient, it really needs to be next to your elevator. And that's the whole problem. We need it there. I don't know if that's the exact right spot, but that's the only way it'll work. To be efficient, if you put it out of town, it's really hard to sell this elevator to somebody else and tell them they're not gonna compete against us. So that's, I hope that you can succeed in going ahead with this project.
Thanks, Roger. Rob?
What is the time frame when the dryers are running? Is it like this fall, or, I mean, when is the dryer and fan running? Is it year round, 6 months, 3 months, what's the?
Peak season would be September to, depending on how late the harvest goes, December. That's the peak season.
Okay. Any other people want to, any questions?
Well, that's, I mean, that depends on the condition of the green and time of the year and so on and so forth. So, in all
In a perfect world, no, you know that. Not at all.
The 4-inch main gas line that's on that lot of Depot Park, is that gonna be moved, or are they gonna build up, is it out of the way of where the bin sites are gonna be?
I think it's right on, in the right of way,
So they'll.
but it's not in the
they'll
park.
avoid that.
It's still west.
Oh,
You have to go underneath the railroad.
just on the west side of the track, there's a call, go for one.
Any other comments? Input? Questions?
What is the decision-making timelines as far as the elevator, when they'd like to be in operation, when the city council would further take action?
Well, when Zach has met with us, and he can correct me, but I think in our November meeting that expeditiously that to try to be in operation by next fall's harvest. Is that correct?
In a perfect world.
Right. So as far as the timeline, that's one reason when he talked to us in November and council visited, and from the information he gave us, the council wanted to have a public hearing because this reason tonight, that people have an opportunity to talk and give their feelings and opinions, etc. So I tried to set as quickly as possible this hearing. We wanted to give public notice, which was in 2 newspapers, the article, and I believe it was in 2, possibly 3 editions of the Enterprise. So on that side, trying to help the elevator board to, get this information to make a decision. So from tonight, we'll continue working with the board, but it's a council decision as far as how we're going to proceed. So as far as a date set yet, there hasn't been, but there definitely will be one that there'll be public notice, of course, and everything else. So what I would say in the interim and ASAP that our council, Laura Reese, isn't here tonight, but we have Mike Todman, Kevin Waller, Alex Gustafson, and myself, and Laura Reese, as far as the council. And as far as the Kinston County Elevator Board, the Hallock Co-op Elevator Board, those individuals, I would assume you could talk to them too in the meantime. But that was, so back to this hearing, is I wanted to do what I could from the city to help the elevator board get this meeting as quickly as possible. So from here, like I say, we'll have to set a date to make a decision. And so there in the interim, I would talk to your council members individually if we've been here tonight, and Laura, it's being taped, so Laura will have a copy of the tape, but call them, talk to them, send them an email, etc. Ryan, on the agenda, that's why we have the phone numbers for both entities, is so you can call, like for Hallock, I can speak for that. Ryan would have our email addresses or phone numbers. So. Gail?
Yeah, I just want to make a final note. I think, after listening to everybody, I think everyone is for this, but it's location and the dust, the emission of dust and the noise control. And I have a letter here from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency in September of 2010 about this Jasper, Minnesota elevator. And what we don't want to do here is get in a fighting war with the MPCA. You get a group of people from Hallock who go to the MPCA, and then there's a lawsuit between the citizens of Hallock and the elevator. We don't want that. That's what happened here. And then the MPCA made this elevator, they had to submit a plan to permanently eliminate dust, apply for an air emission permit, submit air emissions inventory reports, and correct other violations. We don't want to get into that. We want you to succeed. So if there's a way that this, with all the equipment you're buying, if it's not going to create dust and bees, wings, and all that, then I think, and we see a drawing, and I'm more than happy to print a half page in the paper for nothing about the drawing, of the drawing. But I think it's the dust control, the air the fans, and having that stuff stolen all over from the winds we get in our area. I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I think everyone's for this project, but there's gotta be, I'm concerned about the emission control, the dust and the, if you keep the dust and all that down, then there's less chance of fires, in my research.
Okay.
Eric Younger from Northcote. From what I understand, I don't know what's going on in Stephen, but it sounds like Shapansky put up a dryer system. He's a private entity. Drayton issues, North Dakota is a whole different world. We deal with MPCA. You hear about it with Crystal all the time, but Minnesota factories have an issue, the North Dakota factories don't yet. Do you have to go through MPCA for permits on any of this? And I would assume that EPA's dust policies govern the manufacturer of the drying systems themselves?
I would assume that as well. I don't know that for sure.
Calling again. Anyone else want to speak?
From a city maintenance issue, I would like Troy's opinion. Do you have any concerns on city maintenance, highways, or anything?
Well, the way he talks, he's not going to be on our views that much on the state issues. So as far as our maintenance, I don't think there's going to be a real maintenance on it. No, I don't have an issue on it as far as that goes. It's the maintenance part of it.
And like Joe said, Commissioner Joe, that's County Road 1, so it's County Road, and of course, probably all familiar that, of course, State Highway 75, and then the city streets, of course, would be adjacent to those highways and roads. So, one more time, if there's anybody else. And I guess, like, I'll reiterate that in the interim, like I say, we've got this recorded and we'll have minutes of the meeting, but feel free to contact anyone from the council and I guess the elevator board if you have any concerns other than the ones here tonight that are expressed. And definitely, when it comes to the city to have to act on it, we'll have to work in that as far as what the date might be, and then like I say, public notice for that. And that's, I wanted to state that as, that of course is a public meeting, and it'll be set for a special date in the future. So everyone will have notice, we'll do whatever we can, just like we did here, and to try to facilitate communication between the board, elevator board, council, citizens. And I know a lot of people have talked to me, talked to the other council people, and I assume they've talked to the elevator board. I can't speak for that, but anybody and everybody that was good to be here tonight, there was just a possibility because of the weather that, like I say, feel free to contact any one of us. And I guess, and Gail's at our meeting, so we'll publish the notice of when it would be. And I guess with that, do you have anything in closing? Okay.
There was some talk about closing 4th Street Railroad crossing there. Would that be taken out if this expansion went through? It's the south side of the elevator there.
What we're talking about now is, we're talking about going north. The option of going south, it's not on the table right now.
No, but that, there was talk of, was that the?
As far as the railroad
taking
goes,
the railroad, the crossing also.
I haven't heard anything from the railroad in the last 5 years about it. So I don't know what their plans are with that. I think they would prefer to have it closed, but if nobody pushes the issue, I doubt that it would ever happen.
And as far as from the city side, all the railroad crossings have been considered, as far as with the Burlington Northern have been in communication with us, because they're in a business where they want to eliminate crossings, and that was one of them, which we talked about, to the south, that one, to the north, et cetera, in the past, as far as closing of possible crossing, just to eliminate another crossing within the city, and then there would be some compensation, and I don't know, it's probably been 5-6 years ago, probably, when we discussed the crossings, but it has come up different times as far as different crossings, and that one has been one of them. Anything else? Well, with that, I want to thank everybody for coming. Like I say, it was kind of a nasty night, but I appreciate your attendance, appreciate your comments, input. Please relay them to us. And I guess with that, I want to thank you again for coming. Have a safe travel home. Thanks.